Okay, folks, tell me if this sounds familiar. Somebody, somewhere, I'm not going to say who they are or what level in the org chart they are, comes to you and says, I don't know why we're not innovating more. And then 5 seconds later, they give you 13 to 4,000 more things to do. If this sounds familiar to you, this has been the experience that Will and I have had at different times, and I'm increasingly seeing it in the conversation as it relates to innovating just generally with technology and AI. But Will and I are going to crack the code on how to get rid of that, how to deal with it. And secret is, it just shouldn't happen. What is up, folks? It's another week of the High Tech Podcast. We're here. My name is Josh. I'm one of the hosts. That dancing head, if you're watching the video, is Will. That's my co-host. What's up, buddy? How you doing? In your completely normal room that you're normally in.
I'm nowhere special. This is a green screen. I don't know. This is a door. Okay.
Again, I don't know that you needed to call it a green screen. You could have just been like, "This is my room," and we remodeled.
I turned to the left.
Believed you.
That'd be great, actually. Just start doing different rooms and try and convince people that I'm just in the same room, just different angles and stuff.
Changing the room every time. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to another week of the High Tech Podcast, folks. Before we get into all the fun jazz, not actual jazz, because this is not a jazz podcast. I don't know. Maybe Will can do some jazz. Anyway, a couple of reminders. If you're listening to the High Tech Podcast right now, which if you're hearing my voice, you are. Surprise. Make sure to subscribe and check us out online. We are on all the socials at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. You can email us at inbox@hightechpod.us if you want to be on the podcast. If you've thought about something we said, or you're tired of Will's head bouncing side to side because you're watching the video. These are all things that you can tell us at inbox@hightechpod.us. Also a reminder, check out our website, hightechpod.us as well. All of our episodes are on there, including fun episode notes sometimes on those pages. So you want to go check them out.
Before we spend too much more time waxing eloquent, and if you have no idea what we're just
I don't know if it was eloquent.
Waxing.
We could have just said waxing. I think we were just waxing.
What, polishing a turd, I think is the phrase. If you have no idea what we're just talking about, that means you're not in the club. So wait for our ad later to find out what the High Tech Club is and how you can join.
Ad earlier, sorry.
Earlier, at some point in this episode,
I wasn't going to let it go. That was a great moment. Wait for our ad earlier when it gets to you before this moment.
Yeah. Time is relative. What's the point of this episode? Episode 256, we are here to get into not only some light AI conversations, but more specifically the broader conversation around innovation in a time-crunched world. So time is still so relevant, whether it's earlier or later. It doesn't matter. Time is of the essence. So let's dig in. When we think about this moment in time, everyone wants to AI this, AI that. And Josh kind of let in on the intro of this episode, like we've got CEOs, we've got CTOs, we've got CISOs, we've got all these C's everywhere saying, let's do more AI. No complaints. It's not a bad thing to do necessarily. But practically,
depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's bad things to do.
Murder bots. Nope. Don't love it.
That was an idea for today's episode.
I know, that's coming up later. If you want to talk about the first autonomous robot attack, we will talk about that. But not on
the
episode.
List.
We're not bringing Will's Beach Day down.
As I watch planes go up and down the coast every day. When we think about these AI workflows, though, and what we can do to be more efficient, to reduce effort, when you think about copying and pasting things, it's like, oh gosh, how many times do you copy paste across sheets, across documents? You're taking big data to small data, or you're taking big data, inputting it places, all those kinds of things. We're very regularly being challenged in this moment to try to reduce that effort with. Josh, do you know what can you guess? What would we use to make those things faster?
Probably Excel. I think everybody wants to try to innovate with AI. Okay, that's the thing. That's the jazz right now. Though the terminology innovation it's not new. I mean, this is like always. I mean, Will, if you and I could throw a rock, okay, and express the chances of us hitting a company with the word innovation in a value or a mission statement, okay?
There's no
Like,
need to throw the rock.
we wouldn't
you
just need to throw. We could just drop the rock. We just drop it.
Yep.
Oh, found it.
And,
It's right
we
there.
found it.
Right. Everybody wants to innovate, and I get the desire. Right. Nobody wants to sit. Most
not a
people
bad
don't want
thing.
to just sit on their laurels. They want to push the bar. They want to make things better. Right. Innovation is not always a bad buzzword type of thing.
Right.
There's a lot of people trying to innovate in positive ways, whether it's the medical field, whether it's farming, whether it's the tech world. There's lots of positive examples of innovation. We want to be seen as people who don't just do the same thing in out over and over again, but the desire at the end of the day is to innovate. And I would actually like to come back to the word innovation in a second, but as we're talking about, Will, we see a lot of people talking about this, but then there seems to be kind of sometimes a disconnect or trying to figure it out.
In short, because it's not necessarily about what happened in my day job, but in short, right, there was a directive, there was a desire to use AI more, and there was also a concern about not using AI enough, right? So the leadership desire was there to say, let's use it, and then the leadership concern was there saying, are we using it enough in the right ways throughout the company, et cetera, et cetera. And I was very early in this conversation, very early at my time in the company, but also on the conversation. And I just kind of looked at the situation, knowing one or two of my colleagues. This is 2 months ago, and I'm in my company now 3-4 months. I was just looking and saying, hey, like I understand this concern. Again, the leadership says, let's do it. But the leadership's all saying, why isn't it being done? But have you looked at how much time our folks have to do the AI stuff? I was able to advocate, and I know from even my time, my last 5 years, my last employer, it takes a lot of effort to make AI good. You can absolutely just use Gemini for notes. You can absolutely just use it to transcribe. You can absolutely use it to, write some code for you. You can just kind of plug and play. But if I'm going to sit down and make an app, like I've made a few web browser extension stuff, it's taken me each of them, 8 to 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours. That's at more than a business day's worth of effort to build a tool that I can then use reproducibly. But what if it breaks? What if this? What if that? What if, and it's not always the people's problems can be solved with one little tool. So raising that concern is appropriate to say, why aren't we using it? How can we be using it better, more, faster, etc. But on the other side, it was kind of like missing the mark a second as to like, what are the expectations for folks to accomplish the work? Because if we have 50 hours of work to do in a week, yes, it would be great to have AI reduce that to 35 hours. But if I have 50 hours to do in a week, I already don't have enough time to make AI work for my purposes, right? Like we see the problem.
Yes,
we know the
it's
problem.
the point of like
before AI.
Yeah, it's been before AI, it's been after. I think the trend I'm seeing, and the reason it keeps coming up on the AI conversation is because I'm seeing this trend both in my own scenario and others where it's like this, and I get it. It's out of this feeling, especially in the AI space, and I still push back on this. I will just say this point blank, which is that there's this vibe with AI that exists with other new technologies, which is like if we're not doing something with it, we're behind. And I would like to just reiterate that that's absolute hogwash and just stupid. Like nobody knows where AI is going. I'm sorry. Like, yes, you can be in the front and you can innovate, but there's plenty of people who've wasted their time doing things with AI that was totally worthless, and they should have never done it, and they probably should have just done their job. Like that's like, okay. So like it's not always a guarantee, right? But I get this point of like, here's a new resource, here's the thing we could do. And in my scenario where I'm seeing it a lot is in a market of higher ed that's already struggling, is running out of resources, where you're continually people are wearing multiple hats, and there's not money to just hire a bunch of other people. And so AI is a natural thing that we should be looking at, is going, okay, how can we use this to fill gaps in areas? But I see this disconnect of like, well, why aren't we doing more of this? When the reality is people can't just innovate without being given space to do it. Right? Like, and I think the reason AI is really a crutch point for all of this right now is that I think the idea is, well, AI just does things. So like you should just be able to start using it and doing it.
And
right?
if,
like
and
that's
if one
the
of
idea.
if one of our leaders is looking at LinkedIn, the bastion of success and operational efficiency in the world, right? Every other CEO is saying how they're moving the needle with AI, like tongue
because
in full
everything
cheek here.
everybody posts on LinkedIn is clearly reality.
I actually want to make a hard point here to transition us. You know, this podcast, and we just generally are spending a lot of time with AI. We've opened this up because this conversation topic.
It's the number one search thing, in case you're curious.
Amazing. This is coming to us from AI, but the problem precedes this, and the problem will succeed this, right? It's not about AI. AI is the current thing, the current trend that is improving efficiency, making things different. But Josh and I are actually going to Trojan horse this episode to say this is a work problem. This is an efficiency problem. This is a leadership problem. There's so much more to this than just AI, because that's the tool. That's the tool offering us more opportunity, but it is not the thing causing this problem. And when our leaders are looking at this going, why aren't we using AI more? It's like, why maybe are we not leading as well as we could be? Why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? It's not about, and I don't mean that to trash leaders. There's plenty of good leaders who are also saying AI needs to be used more. It's just one of these moments where we're reacting to the situation and not actually taking kind of a practical or philosophical approach to how we improve, a strategical approach to how we improve the situation.
I don't want to make this just about AI, because what I think this really comes down to is not, okay, how do you make space to innovate with AI, or how do you get past this disconnect, right? Which I would say this disconnect is, we want to innovate with AI, people innovate with AI, but then the next words out of your mouth are, here are the 13 billion things you have to do. Okay, this is the disconnect, right? Like,
here's how much time you don't have.
But also you need to keep running my company, right? Like, that's you can't have both. But I think it's not just an AI thing. I think it's innovation in general, right? What cultivates a culture of innovation, I think, is part of the problem. Yeah. So so here's a couple points I would make. One, first of all, let's define innovation before we go any further, right? Ooh. What do we mean by innovation? Because I was just having this debate with somebody earlier, right? So, like, Will, how do you define innovation? Somebody says the word innovation after you've thrown up a little bit because you've heard another buzzword, and your brain might also go back to pivot. It's
great.
How do you define innovation?
Well, I've got to use some corporate ease to define my corporate ease, of course.
Okay.
One of the first, one of the first two things that come to mind in the word of innovation in work is the difference between enhancing the business and running the business. That is some language that goes back to the first year of my professional career. If we are running the business, to me, an innovation is improving the processes or resources we have to run the business. If it's to enhance the business, innovation might be creating something we don't currently have. That might give us a new frontier to sell, a product to sell. It might give us new insights on how we operate the business. There's overlap there, but innovation can, in a corporate or a work sense, be, for me, cut into those two spaces. Something we're doing to improve existing processes and make it better, that's still innovation. It may not be creating a brand new product, but it's still making us be more efficient, changing the way we work, whatever. Or it is actually creating something new to the company, creating a new product, creating a team. Those are examples of innovation that would either run the business or enhance the business in different ways. Now, did I pass the quiz, or did I get a
somewhat? Right. Like, you're talking about enhancing. You're talking about changing. So the core definition of innovation, just innovation in general. I've heard this before. I forget who this is from, so I'd have to track back the source. But it's basically this idea of novelty times value times adoption equals innovation. So
novelty times value
times adoption equals innovation. So this idea is novelty, something meaningfully different, not just new to you, but meaningfully different, something meaningfully new. Value, it solves an actual problem, right? So, right, let's think about all of the innovative technology we've had over the years. They usually solve a real problem. There's been lots of absolute failures of technology. And it's because they never really solved a real problem. The first one that comes to my mind is, you remember that like AI pin that was trying to go around for a while?
Oh my gosh.
That like died real fast.
Dude, that was like year one.
Yeah, because it turns out nobody needed a little, like, we already have watches and phones. We didn't need a pin.
They wanted to Star Trek the phone. That's what they wanted to do.
Yeah. So, and so the way the definition, and in my mind, this hits me is, it's this idea of not falling in love with your idea, but falling in love with the thing you're trying to solve, and the idea is a way to get there. So it's that value, and then adoption. This is the other key part. People actually use it, right? Like there's been lots of great ideas out there. They maybe solve a problem, but the problem isn't big enough that anybody actually cares to use it. Right.
If Ford can make more cars than Ford's going to put Toyota out of business. That was true because I don't know, the Toyota existed then, but the Ford was trying to do that against the other car manufacturers.
This is why we're not a history podcast. Side note.
Thank God.
Yep.
Oh, if we were a history podcast, this would be drunk history. Like, there's no other way I could get through that. It would have to be libationally supported. Anyways. Yeah. Ford tried to break the market at that time, and then everyone else made the same innovation, and they're still around today. Plenty of companies have come and gone, right? But it's not like if Ford figures out AI cars that they're going to put all the other car companies out of business. Like, you think about the classic instances of company v company, these juggernauts versus others, it's not the thing that really makes or break it. And whether or not we go faster isn't going to solve the problem with AI or any innovation. It's not about that.
And so I would argue what I'd like to lay out here next, Will, is kind of like, okay, what kind of things being put in place foster a culture of innovation, right? And so the first thing I think is a culture that's clear on what value they're aiming for, right? They're clear on what the value is, right? So like an example, I think where a lot of companies are failing on the AI side, but innovation in general, is it's like the value is just like, be faster. Okay, well, like that's not clear enough. Now, I think it depends on what level we're talking about, right? If you're talking to an entire organization, or even myself, we're casting vision with our team about how we use AI, right? And some of the goals we've set are kind of over vague, where they're kind of talking about like being not necessarily faster, but being more efficient in many ways.
Right.
But our teams had to do a lot of work to define when we're saying that, what do we mean, right? And so we've done a lot of work to define like, okay, team, when we're talking about using AI, we're talking about internally, because for us, there's two angles to this, because there's the using it in education, and then there's using it as a team.
Right.
On the team, we've been using these two terms that we constantly keep using, and then we're currently in the work actually right now shaping out more clear objectives that tie to these. But it's essentially like our two biggest aims are, okay, we have a team that only has so much time. There's a lot of like quality learning experience, user experience enhancement, which we want to be able to make to courses, but we're not able to find time to do all of those things, right? And so we want to see how can we use AI to automate or simplify some of our repetitive processes to make us more efficient in what we're doing, so that we can up the quality of our courses. So the objectives now we're defining are, okay, what do we mean by repetitive things? What do we mean by being more efficient? And then what do we mean by value? Like what or better quality, right? So like we're going through the work of trying to define what's the value we're aiming for, the target essentially, right? Like this sounds so simple, but it's like everybody just seems to just forget this thing. It's like you can't push anyone anywhere unless you show them a direction to go. And I'm sorry, the direction, use this tool more, isn't going to get you there. All that's going to result in is people using it more. And that gets to the reports that Will and I have seen constantly on LinkedIn of like people just reporting the hours they're using AI, and it's for the stupidest stuff that like doesn't do anything. So like value, defining that value is so important.
Hey, Will. Hey, Josh. Do you wish this episode was longer? Like there was more time to spend with us?
Be a lot less editing.
That would be super cool, right? Yeah. So like if you're listening or watching and you feel that way too, you should become a High Tech Club member because you get extended episodes. There's lots of other stuff that Will and I talked about. Will and I say dumb stuff all the time, and if you want to hear it on the podcast live, check that out.
You might even hear Will say things he's not supposed to say, which I've edited out never before.
For sure. If you want to hear the unedited version of Josh and Will, become a High Tech Club member. You check that out. You get extended cuts. You get access to vote on future topics. You'll get discount options on merchandise that's coming, and a few other cool things. So go check that out. Links in the bottom description of the episode or someplace on our website, hightechpod.us. Make sure to go check that out and subscribe.
Please and
become a
thank
club
you.
member.
I was about to say, like, sometimes the value can be we see the opportunity in this tool. We don't know what it could do for us yet. So right now we just want to experiment and we want to explore. Right.
Yeah.
And so the value you're defining for your team is no longer you have to perfectly iron out a process. The value is ideas. The value is finding options. It's like so it encourages, it opens the door for what you're doing. What I'm describing is the next step we're moving toward, but my team literally just did that. We didn't know what direction we wanted to go, and so we just told the team to play with things. We set this value of like, you're going to invite AI into what you're doing. And so then we saw what happened, right? And some people didn't like that and they tried some stuff. Others, though, found some really cool opportunities. And then we built, if that's the value, then that defines the stuff you build into how you're doing it, right? So if the value is exploring and sharing ideas, then that immediately communicated to us, well, one of the approaches we have to give people as leadership is a way for them to share ideas with each other in a recorded way so that they can learn from each other, right? And so like that's the other thing, is opening doors for communication in a lot of these areas. Like innovation is going to require space for people to bounce ideas off of each other and areas. I want to get to one other thing that I think is fosters innovation, right? So there's value, there's space to make mistakes and screw up, right? Okay, so like here's my biggest problem with a lot of the people who want to innovate. They want to innovate, but then they hyper control everything, right? Like you can't make any mistakes, right? Like they'll be like, innovate, but the second it doesn't do what they wanted, they're like, why did you waste your time doing that? Innovation doesn't happen in that space. Okay, like yes, set bounds. Like Will and I've talked about this a lot. Like I believe creativity happens in a box. Those of you who disagree with me, you're just wrong.
Reach out to us, inbox at High-Tech Podcast.
Somebody inbox at High-Tech Podcast. Yeah, I still make this argument that creativity outside of a box isn't creativity. You just did something. Like creativity inside of a box is you had bounds and you got creative of how you achieved something, right? So I'm not saying you just let people run rampant for 2 years and do whatever they want. But what I'm saying is if somebody takes a risk to try to innovate, they don't get beat down for taking that risk. Yeah. Right. Like you need to allow people a chance to experiment. You need to allow people. And if there's areas they can't take risks in, right, like data security, probably shouldn't just like throw customer data into OpenClaw.
Whatever do you mean?
Right. Like, so like if there's those boxes, you set those bounds, set those guardrails. A colleague of mine calls it setting the sandbox. Right. Like, but you still need to allow space for mistakes to happen, because innovation doesn't just, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. Something's going to waste time, right? It's not going to be the end result. And so you need to make it clear to your team that that's okay. And back that up with how you react when somebody tells you they spent 2 hours trying to play with an AI thing and it didn't do anything. Like don't get mad at them for wasting 2 hours. Like,
never had that happen to me.
I don't know. Well, does that feel fair? I feel like you're probably not going to disagree with that, but like that makes sense to you.
I think that you need to pair that with, the guardrails, the sandbox approach, perfectly acceptable. Forgiveness. I don't mean to say that in like an emotional sense, but like in even the terms of accessibility, right? Forgiveness is a codified idea in user experience and user design, that we need to consider the fact that folks need to be able to like pull things not work, but then it to be some threshold for that to let it happen. Pair that idea with backups. Like literally, I mean it literally, like if you're having them work on websites and they're going to use something with AI, okay, that's fine. You need to have a backup. Make sure you've saved the V1 before you try and use AI to make a V2. Like as long as folks, I think, can have the room to use the tools freely with their creativity, with their ideas, with whatever, just make sure that there's a backup of whatever they started working on.
Yeah.
If it's the LMS, if it's a user database,
that's why we have test areas for LMSs and things like there's, or we create test areas. Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying take unnecessary risks. I guess what I'm saying is give space for people to make risks and to take them and to learn from them, because that's where innovation is going to happen. It's not just going to immediately be like they picked up GPT and all of a sudden now they're twice as fast. Right? Like it's going to take experimentation. And that gets us to probably Will and I's number one for creating a culture of innovation. There's other ideas that we'll bring out here in a second, but this is my number one. Create darn space for it. Okay, like can we? If I could just scream something from the rooftops, it would be that don't you dare criticize a team for not being innovative enough when they have 50 hours worth of tasks that week, right? Because they're not going to have time, right? Like they just innovation doesn't just happen. It requires experimentation. It requires testing out ideas. And especially when it comes to AI, this is, Will, you and I's experience 100%, is I think the problem is a lot of people who don't understand AI think innovation with AI just means you type something in and it just does something for you. Why is this taking you so long to figure out?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work that way. Actual innovation with AI requires learning about AI. It requires understanding it. And then it requires testing different prompts and testing different tools, or testing different ways of coding with the tools, and it all depends on the person's skill sets, what they're trying to do with it, right? It takes time. Like, and this has been your feeling recently, Will. It's like not that anybody's been like constraining you in this space. It's just you've been acknowledging that like you've been busy, and because of that, you've struggled to get certain innovative like AI things that you used to be able to do when you weren't working. Like it's not that anybody took away your time. You started a new job. But you've been expressing how like it's not easy just to spin up AI ideas in the midst of your work.
Absolutely. To your point, Josh, when we say give the space, it's not just saying, hey, like I want you to do something, or I want this. I would be as clear and kind as saying, I want you to spend 2 hours a week or 5 hours a week, or a budget, giving a budget. Because if you just say, well, it'd be great if you have a project a month that's AI based, or let's get you on a committee that can run that's AI focused, that is not going to give the space for creativity and innovation that is needed for someone who's going to tinker, play, figure out, fight, try, experiment, right? Like if you just say, oh, if you can produce one project a month, guess what? That project is always going to be fifth in line. It just is. If you don't give that dedicated and committed space to it, and even the directive on what it is to be accomplished, unless, like in my instances most recently, like I had a small problem I wanted to solve, so I solved the problem. Like that's what drove me to spend the time on it. But long term, I have other more pressing problems. That's the point of work. We have problems, we have to solve them. And so unless you make one of those problems AI opportunities, employees everywhere are just going to keep going to LinkedIn and complaining about it. It's just is what it is.
Well, no, it's true. I like the idea of like giving allotments of time and being generous with this a little bit too, because it's always, you're just never sure how long things are going to take. So being like, hey, I want you to spend 30 minutes a week. I'll just be honest. Nobody's getting anything done with 30 minutes a week. So don't do that. Even 2 hours. I'm like, I don't know if that's enough time, depending on what they're trying to do. Right. Yeah. So like where I tried this, and we're actually trying this now on a bigger scale in some ways, is I was looking for an idea of trying to how to get team members to do this. And so, because like you and I were talking about this a lot, Will, when you and I have space, I think there are also people that are just naturally more prone to this, right? So like, I'll just be transparent. Right. Will and I both are two people who are slightly more prone to this. So if we have more space, we will just inevitably do it. Mainly because I think like Will, you and I's personalities are, we just don't like inefficient things. So like we get annoyed when something takes us too long. And so that's probably what drives you and I to this. Yeah.
I've been telling folks the reason I became an LMS administrator and got into this world of work is because when I got my first job and I spent time doing the first task, which was creating, let's say, 150 courses, I was told, how do I do this? I asked that question. I was told, well, you have 2 monitors. You put the spreadsheet on the left, you put the LMS on the right, and you copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And my first response was, what? There's not an automated way to do this? I can't upload these? They're like, you're telling me you literally copy and paste? And like starting my career on that question has, I should honestly make that a part of any future job interview if I ever need it. Like that will demonstrate my personality in a nutshell. But I figured out how to use CSV imports in Moodle, which the rest of my team didn't know at that time. And then I started using CSV imports, and now I had a lot more time on my hands, and I could spend time learning the LMS, and that became my career because I solved that one problem. I was not going to copy and paste 150 courses into Moodle from a spreadsheet. And here we are today, right? We're trying to solve those same kinds of little paper cuts, like importing users, creating courses, assigning permissions to roles and stuff. Like these are all very repeatable tasks, and oftentimes, especially in my work now, I need to do them at scale, at hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of values, right? I'm in spreadsheets now all the time with at least 1,000 rows of data. I'm not doing it manually, because it's not only a time sink, there's an inefficiency, there's an opportunity to lose accuracy. And now we've got a QA, and so two people have to look at it and go back over it and make sure, like it is such a lost time to copy and paste data in 2026 when we have these tools that are in front of us.
Yeah. So anyway, I was struggling with, on my end, leading people. How do you get people who are bogged down in the stuff? How do you create space for this? And then how do you also create an environment that encourages it? And I was actually this idea didn't come from me. I found it somewhere else and I played with it. It was this idea of doing like this micro experiment goal idea, which is basically like on one-on-ones with people. Like I had people define, and again, hear how this relates to the concept of innovation that Will and I talked about, right? I had people define a problem that they had in their work environment, right? Mm-hmm. And then the whole goal was, how can AI help you get around that problem? Right? Like, let's define a goal of how you think AI could help you get around that problem. Okay, then go experiment with that, right? And go play with that. And they were given an allotment of time to go do this, right? And I didn't do this perfectly. And so like that would be my encouragement to you. Okay, if you're going to foster this area, again, set the value. What's the value? You want to solve real problems. Okay, cool. If you don't know what the real problems are yet, how do you empower people to help you find those real problems? And you set that as a value. And then you space out time and you allow them time to experiment, and you give them freedom to do it in a way that if they screw up or they end up accidentally wasting time on something, they're not going to be punished. And we actually see that as a value because they found an avenue that wasn't going to work for them. We actually created a database for our team to share stuff. And so like they would even share, they were encouraged to share bad things, like stuff that they were like, we would rate things on efficiency scales. And so some people just like tried some things. And actually one of our friends, she tried something and it didn't really go that well, and it's in the database and it's labeled inefficient, like just in case anybody else wants to try doing it.
Don't do it this way.
Like, don't do it this way. Like those things are how you start to encourage ideas and you start to get some stuff. And then we started to get a picture over the year of some like real problems that we could solve. And then we took a bigger initiative to say, okay, now as leadership, we're going to back a bigger initiative to actually solve some of these problems.
Lessons learned, whether for good or for bad. And it's not a moral thing, but lessons learned, meaning if it came out, we have a tool we can use, or we came out of it and we can't use the tool, but we learned something by doing it, are invaluable. And they add back into the innovation cycle, right? By having those lessons learned that didn't work out, someone can expedite the process next time. They might come into your same idea and go, oh, but if you'd make it a left here, you might have actually gotten to Los Angeles, right? And so now someone can take that same idea, expand it differently, and we have more opportunity for innovation. Josh, I'm happy for you and for your team that you're giving space for this. And I think that's one of those things that it's why we do this podcast, it's why we talk about this. Like, I hope more folks can consider these things and play it into their teams, into their companies, whatever it is, because it's just generosity in a sense. It's saying the goal is to be better. The goal is to be faster. Try things out. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. We don't have to fix everything tomorrow. Not every employee has to do it. Not every employee has to do it the same way. Not every employee has to make an app, right? Like, we don't have to go, do. But we can set that overall value for the company of, this is what we want to accomplish. This is how we're going to accomplish it. Here's the budget you each have. Let's try this for you. Let's try that for you, and move forwards together. That to me is just a leadership thing. But at the end of the day, if we're striving for innovation, even the rest of the folks in the company can still do that and be advocates for it without having to be the CEOs, the VPs, the directors, whatever. We can all accomplish this in our work by bringing this methodology or even this commitment to the process.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would emphasize again that slow down idea. Will and I have mentioned this before. I think we even had an episode on this. This idea of slowing down to speed up. If I'm Will's book will be copy and paste, the death of copy and pasting. Mine will be slow down to speed up. The reaction in a lot of people, and you see it in the AI space right now, is we have to speed up now if we're going to catch up with everyone. The problem is, if you speed up too soon, you speed up into just stupid ideas. Like, you speed up into things that don't solve real problems. But I think the reverse of that, people who think they know what agile means, they think means just doing stuff faster.
Yeah.
But you can do a lot of crap faster. Like, if you don't actually understand what the problem is, then you've just wasted your time. And so I think a lot of what I would encourage people to do is a culture of innovation is going to slow down to understand what they're aiming for. Because the way you'll kill your next innovative process is if you do all of those things and you never say thank you for the people who found the innovation. Because then the people start to lose motivation to do it again. And so having recognition, whatever that looks like, I think is an important part to fostering innovation, because people want to feel valued. And I don't think that's absurd to feed into that for people.
What?
So
No, they should just be happy to be in their cubicles, all sad and dreary and gray,
Yeah, they get paid. They should be happy, right? There's no easier way to disgruntle a person than to get them to do a whole bunch of work and then not recognize them for that. And then it ends up on somebody's leadership profile. Sorry. Okay, continue.
LinkedIn is getting dragged in this episode.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Anyway.
Well, folks, this is part of the conversation. It's not necessarily an AI episode. This is a principles and a thought leadership episode, and we want to dig into how we can all continue to be innovating better. So I hope that is helpful for you all. Otherwise, that's a wrap on another week of the High Tech Podcast. We'll catch you next week for some more shenanigans, probably just regular old AI conversations. Until then, we will continue empowering minds.
Embracing tech.
Cheers.